to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Well, my next guest, I am super excited to have. This is the first time that she's appeared on one of my radio shows or television programs in a super long time. In fact, it has not been since she was the head of the nation's largest advocacy women's group that I last spoke to her on air, that I could find in my records anyway. But she's someone who's been a dear friend and someone that I actually worked for a period of time. It's not infrequent that I bring former bosses on the show. We all know this. But ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the woman who heads up governmental affairs for the American Family Association and longtime radio personality and even a concerned woman for America. Please welcome Sandy Rios. Hello, Sandy.
Kevin, my pleasure. Yeah, you want to get personal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I really?
Sure.
Okay, so what happened was I was on the air in Chicago, and I was such a novice. I didn't know anything about radio. It was just a weird thing that happened that they invited me to take a show, and we had good success. It was an earlier afternoon show, and we had such good success that they let the drive time host go and asked me to take the drive time and hire my own staff. Well, first of all, let me just say it wasn't normal to have not many women were doing hard news.
That's true. To this day, this genre is dominated by too many male voices, and that's one of the reasons why I try to have at least 50% of the people on this show be female. We're missing half the conversation.
Well, see, that's where I don't feel that way. I think if a woman is gifted, then yes, but not just because she's a woman.
Right.
And I think women are notoriously not really suited because they're more suitable for women. In fact, the irony is, Kevin, when they hired me to do initially at Salem in Chicago, they had a great drive time host, and so we went through all of these back and forth. I was a musician, for heaven's sake. I'd never done radio except I did start at Moody as a co-host for Jim Warren for years, but just as a friend. I sat there with him, and then I would go out and do my singing tours, and I never took myself seriously as some sort of a radio host. I used to feel guilty for taking money for talking, but when they invited me to come to try, I was recommended by Ted Seeley, the newsman at Moody Broadcasting, was the one that recommended me. So when they brought me in to finally do the finalizing the interview, they offered me the job, and I was happy because I had just gotten divorced. I had 2 kids, and it was a nice opportunity. But then they said, we want you to do a show, for women, an afternoon show for women. And I said, if you want me to talk about breastfeeding and menopause, I'm not your man, which was probably the most bodacious thing I could have ever said because I needed a job. I was a single mom. But I didn't want to talk about women's things. And I think that's probably, honestly, why God called me to do what I do, because I love women. I have lots of great women friends, but women's stuff never has interested me.
Yeah. One of the things you opened my eyes to when we were working together is that women often live their lives in cycles. So in their early years, they may be very involved with the rearing and nurturing of children, but as they kind of grow and flee the nest, so to speak, they have these skills and abilities that are just kind of sitting out there. And one of the things I've noticed since we worked together, Sandy, is that in the center right commentary space, at least, there are a lot of young women verging on middle age and even some a little bit older that have taken on this idea that their country is in deep, deep trouble and they need to do things like start the Federalist and have a whole bevy of really smart women writing for them. And a number of other publications do the same thing. But what I discovered was when we really started looking at the percentage of discussion, at least on my show, it was men programming for men with other men, talking to men about men that men had been researched to reach with other men. And while I don't have anything against that, I think that there are enormous number of women who are talented, clear thinking, common sense, truth driven individuals that the media certainly won't give the time of day to. And that was largely, I had my eyes open to that largely from my time working with you and seeing that transformation that happens in a lot of women's lives.
Well, I think things are different now. I think that women are more involved. Just they are more involved. They just are. But I still think there's a women culture that does not lend itself to general talk. Now, I know that's very controversial, but I'm a woman and I can say that.
Better you than me, lady.
That it's warm, fuzzy talk that women do, the emotion, which I'm very capable of, but I think more like a man, and I just think that's true. And I think so I was doing this when
there were even fewer people doing it then. Let's just say that.
Hardly any. And I have to say, I just think that's a special thing that God did in my life. I don't think that's something that I think I'm special about. I think that's the way God crafted me. I think He called me to do it. And so we fell right in. So here we go. They give me the ability to hire my own staff and to choose who I wanted. And I found out, Moody was where I started. I trusted their the worldview. I trusted the people that they would recommend to me. And I found out about this young guy who was working for Fred Winston, who was a morning music jock in Chicago. Radio was big in Chicago. If you make it in that market, then you can make it. And so Dave Senes, who you know really well, came to work for me. And I asked Dave then, I want you to do creative. But I need someone to produce who can book the shows and understands the content. And so he recommended this young guy called Kevin McCullough.
Right. I was older than Dave. Just for the record, he was my intern. But yes, he recommended this young man.
But you were going through some hard times, and that appealed to me because I'd been through some hard times. And so I hired you, Kevin. And then here's what happened: you were very creative, also. So we ended up doing, I would say, I think our creative for that show, Sandy Rios, what was it called? Sandy Rios show. Is that it?
Something.
How clever. Anyway, I think the creative we did for that show rivaled Rush's creative. I do.
Yes, absolutely. Sandy Rios is who we're speaking with, and she did revolutionize afternoon drive in Chicago, was recognized for it in different circles. The first ever Tesla radio award that was given was awarded to that team. And I think one of the three of us still have that trophy somewhere in storage.
We got more than one award.
Yeah, well, the silver mics we raked in, because you're right. Dave and I, not only were we good friends and we were both kind of these goofy creative oddballs, but we were really we really worked well together. We kind of offset each other's strengths and weaknesses, and he was more over the top and I was more dry, and there was just a lot of stuff that worked well. And then you were fun to work with, so it made it easy. We're going to take a break and come right back. Sandy, our nation's in trouble. I'm not sure if people have realized that, but I'd be curious on this weekend heading into the July 4th holiday to get some of your perspective on what you exactly think we're in the midst of right now. Just coming right back, That Kevin Show, live from Times Square, and yet this hour, Ann Wilson in the Music Spotlight. Don't go away.
Ready or not, he'll be right back. That